The palace walls shook with her screams. The torches outside the birthing chamber burned low, their flames bending like they too were afraid. For 3 days and 3 nights, Queen Asa battled between life and death.
I know. Hold on.
Her voice, once soft like morning dew, had turned into a cry that tore through the ancient kingdom of Zaphon. This was no ordinary childbirth. This was war. And I will tell you how it began. Long before this night of blood and sweat, there was beauty, love, jealousy, and a secret that nearly destroyed a throne. King Agabus was a strong ruler, feared in battle and honored by elders. He had lands stretching beyond the great river and soldiers who would die at his command. Yet for all his power, his heart was captured by a young orphan girl named Asa. She had lost her parents when she was still learning how to braid her hair. Death took them in a season of sickness. She was left alone, small and afraid, until her mother's brother, Uncle Marcus, took her into his hut. Marcus was not a rich man. He was a humble scribe who read from what he called the sacred book. Every night he would light a small oil lamp and read words of promise and power. He would tell Asa, "Child, there is no enchantment against you. No divination shall stand, and no weapon formed against you shall prosper." She did not fully understand, but she remembered. She remembered every word. Asa grew into a woman of rare beauty. Her skin shone like polished bronze. Her eyes were calm but deep. Yet it was not only her beauty that made people love her. She was kind to servants. She greeted elders with respect. She shared food with beggars. When King Agabus saw her during the harvest festival, he forgot the music and the dancers. All he saw was her. Within moons, he married her and brought her into the palace.
This is Beyond Stories, where every story carries a lesson, and every lesson touches the heart. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that could inspire your next step. Now, let's go deeper into the story.
The kingdom rejoiced. They believed heaven
Yes,
had
my king,
smiled
we are
upon
ready.
their king. For 4 years, peace filled the palace. The king loved Asa deeply, but there was one thing missing: a child, an heir. The elders began to whisper, "A kingdom without a prince is a kingdom in danger. What if the king dies in battle? Who will sit on the throne?" The whispers grew louder. Pressure fell on King Agabus like heavy stones. Asa felt it too. Every month she hoped. Every month she wept quietly when hope failed. She prayed with the words her uncle taught her. Still, her womb remained empty. By the 4th year, the elders demanded action. With a heavy heart, King Agabus took a second wife. Her name was Ayama. She was beautiful in her own way, but her beauty hid a restless spirit. She smiled with her lips, but not with her eyes. She entered the palace determined not just to be a wife, but to be queen above Asa. Time moved quickly. Then something strange happened. In the same season, both women conceived. Joy exploded in the kingdom. Drums were beaten. Offerings were made. The elders said the gods had finally answered. But inside Ayama's heart, fear began to grow. She visited a seer in secret. In the dark forest, under twisted trees, the old seer threw bones upon the ground and whispered. Then she looked up and said, "The child in your womb is a girl. The child in Asa's womb is a boy, a prince, the future king." Ayama's blood turned cold. A girl meant she would never be mother to the throne. Jealousy became fire in her chest. That very night, she sent for the palace midwife. Gold and promises were placed before the woman. When Asa gives birth, Ayama whispered, the boy must not live. Charms were prepared. Dark powders were hidden.
The tribute is paid. It is received.
But something strange began to happen. Every charm placed near Asa's chamber would fall apart. Pots cracked. Powders turned to dust. The midwife grew afraid, but Ayama pressed harder. Then came the night of labor. Asa's pains began like waves, small at first, then stronger. By the second day, she had no strength left. The midwife stood watching. Ayama waited in her own chamber, pretending to be weak with her own labor pains, but her eyes were sharp. Asa felt something was wrong. The pain was not normal. It was as if invisible ropes held her child inside. Her body shook. Sweat covered her skin. Death stood near her bed. And then, in the middle of her suffering, she remembered. She remembered Uncle Marcus. She remembered the sacred book. With dry lips she whispered, there is no enchantment against me, no divination against my child, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. Over and over she spoke. The air in the room changed. The oil lamp flickered high. The ropes that held her womb broke. On the third night, with one final cry, Asa delivered a strong baby boy. His cry filled the palace like a trumpet. But evil was still at work. The midwife quickly took the child. Ayama had already delivered her baby girl. Under the cover of darkness and confusion, the babies were exchanged. The prince was placed beside Ayama. The girl was laid beside Asa. Asa was too weak to see clearly. She only heard a baby cry. And so the great lie began. The palace celebrated Ayama as mother of the prince. Asa held a daughter, confused but silent. But heaven had seen everything, and secrets buried in darkness do not stay hidden forever.
Listen closely, because destiny has a voice, and when destiny cries, no lie can silence it. The palace woke that morning to celebration. Drums rolled across the courtyards. Horns were blown from the towers. A prince is born to King Agabus, the town criers shouted. Women danced, men slaughtered rams. The elders smiled with relief because the throne now had an heir. But inside the palace walls, truth lay bleeding. Queen Asa lay weak, her body torn from 3 days of battle. A baby girl rested on her chest. She stared at the child with confusion in her tired eyes. Something inside her heart felt strange. Not rejection, not hatred, but a quiet question. She remembered the seer's whisper that reached her ears through palace servants days before, that her co-wife had visited the forest in secret. She remembered the strange heaviness during labor, like unseen hands holding her womb closed, and now this silence in her spirit would not leave. Meanwhile, in Ayama's chamber, the stolen prince would not stop crying. He cried in a way that shook the room. The wet nurses tried to feed him, but he refused. He pushed away every breast. He screamed until his face turned red. Ayama paced in anger. "Why will he not drink?" she snapped. The midwife trembled. By evening, the prince was weak from hunger. The palace physician was called. He examined the child and said, "There is nothing wrong with him. He is strong, but he refuses the milk." The king grew troubled. That night the crying continued. It echoed down the halls and into Asa's chamber. Weak as she was, Asa felt her body react. Milk began to flow from her breasts, though the baby girl beside her slept peacefully. Tears filled her eyes. Her body knew something her mind could not yet prove. She closed her eyes and remembered Uncle Marcus. She could see him by the oil lamp, reading from the sacred book.
She could hear his voice. "Truth may be buried, child, but it cannot die. Light always returns." She whispered again, "No enchantment against me, no divination against my house, no weapon formed against me shall prosper." As she prayed, the crying prince suddenly grew louder, as if answering her voice. In Ayama's chamber, fear began to grow. The midwife pulled her aside. "My queen," she whispered, "the boy rejects you. This is not normal." Ayama's hands shook. "Silence," she hissed. "The king must never know." On the third night after birth, something happened that none could explain. The prince broke free from the arms of the nurse when she dozed from exhaustion. The tiny child rolled and fell, not to the floor, but onto thick folded cloth near the door. His cry pierced the hallway. Guards rushed in. In the confusion, Asa heard the cry clearly for the first time since delivery. Her heart pounded like a drum of war. "Bring him to me," she said weakly when the king entered her chamber to check on her. King Agabus hesitated. "But the prince, bring him," she whispered again, stronger now. Something in her eyes stopped him. The king ordered the child to be brought. The moment the baby was placed in Asa's arms, silence fell. The prince stopped crying instantly. He opened his eyes and stared at her face. Then he began to feed. The entire room froze. The midwife felt her knees weaken. Ayama's secret began to crack like dry earth under thunder. The king watched in disbelief. "How?" he whispered. Asa did not speak quickly. She looked at the child, then at the king. "My lord," she said softly, "a mother knows her child, even when lies try to hide him." The room grew heavy. The king turned slowly toward the midwife. Her face was pale. Sweat covered her skin. "Speak," the king commanded. The weight of guilt crushed her courage. She fell to her knees. Words poured out between sobs. The seer, the bribe, the exchange, the charms that failed, everything, every dark plan, every whisper in the night. Ayama was dragged before the king. She denied at first, but fear betrayed her eyes. The king's voice thundered like a storm. "You tried to kill my son. You tried to steal the throne." Ayama collapsed, begging for mercy. The elders were called. Judgment was swift. The seer was banished beyond the borders. The midwife was stripped of her title and sent away in shame. Ayama was removed from the palace and exiled to a distant land where she would never again see the throne she tried to steal. Peace slowly returned, but scars remained. King Agabus stood before the kingdom holding the true prince in his arms. Beside him stood Asa, still weak but glowing with quiet strength. "Let it be known," the king declared, "that lies may rise, but truth stands taller. Let it be known that no charm, no envy, no evil plan can stop what heaven has spoken." The people cheered. Years later, the prince grew strong and wise, and Asa never forgot the words of her uncle. She taught them to her son. She told him, "Power is not in charms, it is not in jealousy, it is not in fear. Power is in truth, power is in faith, power is in a clean heart." And now, as I end this story, remember these lessons. Jealousy destroys the one who carries it. Evil plans often fail before truth. Patience is strength, and no weapon formed against a righteous soul will prosper. What is meant for you cannot be stolen. What heaven protects cannot be destroyed. And destiny, no matter how delayed, will always find its way. The end.